You're listening to the Third Down Squad podcast, the best international news podcast for the National Football League. We're your hosts, Derek, Josh, and Toby. Let's get you ready for a new set of downs on Sunday.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Third Down Squad podcast. I think this might actually be the first time I'm doing this podcast on my new setup, so this is a little different. And of course, we don't have Josh per usual, but we'll hopefully get him by the end of the episode. Anyways, I'm one of your hosts, Derek Larger, and that's Toby as well. And we're going to start this off with talking about the wild card weekend for the NFL playoffs. A lot to talk about in this week, and let's just get started. So first thing you got to talk about, obviously we got to talk about the first game, and that was the Bills triumphing over the Colts. That's an unfortunate one for me because, there was a chance for the Colts to pull this one off with a great comeback. The Bills were leading 24-10 to start the fourth quarter, and it looked like things weren't going to go well for the Colts, but the Colts made two straight quick drives and, were doing really well defensively. It looked like the Colts were going to figure it out, but the Colts offense just couldn't put it together on that last drive. While actually statistically, the Colts were the better team in this matchup in total yards and outran the Bills 3-1 in this game. So, Indianapolis had the ingredients to win it, just couldn't pull it out. Toby, what was your reaction to that game?
Yeah, same as you. For you, it's definitely a bit more emotional as a Colts fan. But in the second half, I had a bit of hope that the Colts could actually pull this off. But the Bills are a really strong team right now. Josh Allen is looking really great out there. And if you look at his stats from that game with those passing numbers that he's obviously known for, but also the rushing numbers, basically he's doing it all for this team right now. And I can't imagine what the Bills can do if they actually have a good running game with Josh Allen as well. I think the Bills have a good potential. Unfortunately, they don't have it right now, and they have a tough matchup this week. But last week they played well against one of the best run defenses in the league, or at least Josh Allen did as a quarterback back there.
Yeah, that was ultimately what they needed to do to have, any chance in this game was Josh Allen be Superman, because with their running backs, they only had a combined 21 yards of total rushing offense. So, not a lot happening in the rushing game that time. We kind of expected that. But anyway, we move on to the second matchup of that weekend. It was the Rams triumphing over the Seahawks 30-20. The Rams defense really came out strong and was putting constant pressure on Russell Wilson, causing a few turnovers early, which put them ahead. We obviously all saw the pick six that Russell Wilson threw on a screen pass, and it just kind of took it from there. And Cam Akers, running for 131 yards and a touchdown. You can run the ball like that, you are going to have a chance to win. And the Rams pulled the upset despite, Jared Goff having some injuries in this game and Aaron Donald as well. And I don't remember who the quarterback was that got injured. Was it Wolford? Is that his name?
I think it is, yeah.
And we certainly all hope for a speedy recovery for him. There was kind of a image of him being transported in a hospital in a neck brace. I think he's okay. They said that he's going to probably not be available this weekend, but nevertheless, he is okay. I wish for a speedy recovery on him. But Toby, your reaction to this one? This was one of the bigger upsets of the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was close because both the teams were fighting for the NFC West title till the very end of the season. So there wasn't really a clear favorite here for me. But you said it at the beginning, Russell Wilson, especially with that pick six. That was the thing I think that broke the Seahawks' neck for that game and kind of moved the momentum towards the LA Rams. And of course, the surprise appearance or resurgence by Cam Akers, like you said, really good game by him, and the Seahawks with a not so dominant defense anymore. They took advantage of it. And you talked about the injury to Wilford and Jared Goff, even not being 100%, had to get into the game. And they actually announced, I think just a couple minutes ago, that Wilford is out for this week's game like we expected, and Jared Goff has to start that game. So it was a tough one for the Rams as well in that regard.
Gotcha. We'll talk about the last one on that Saturday, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Washington football team by a score of 21-23. This wasn't really much of an upset, despite the rankings. It really wasn't much of an upset. Tampa Bay continued to do what it does, put up good points, but credit Washington for fighting in this game. There's a lot of obstacles in their way, and clearly Washington is not the football team that they really want to be yet. A lot of holes still to figure out. But, one bright spot on that team that, could be interesting to see going forward, and that's Heineke, whether or not he actually has a potential to, be a future quarterback for this team. Because, he had 320 yards passing, had 2 touchdowns in this game, and a rushing touchdown. He gave the team a chance to be in this game, and the team loves him. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from Washington. What'd you think of this one, Toby?
Yeah, I was going with Tampa Bay because of the experience in that game, and I thought that the Washington Redskins would be a bit more nervous. I'm sorry, I'm saying Redskins again. I also had that slip up last week. But the Washington football team would be a bit more nervous going into that game. But with a young quarterback like Heineke in that game, they didn't look nervous at all. They held step with a veteran like Tom Brady. And like you said, 21-23, it was really close. And it could have gone either way. But at the end, I think the experience of Tom Brady in the playoffs was the thing that pushed them just that little bit ahead of Washington. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the prettiest game, but the determination that the Washington football team, like you said, showed in that game is something to really watch out for over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move to the Sunday games. Not as much action on this day, a few less exciting games for sure, up until that final one, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the Ravens beating the Titans by a score of 20-13. Really, there was not a lot to really talk about in this game. Lamar Jackson continued to do what Lamar Jackson does, create big plays with his feet. And the Ravens defense, as stellar as it has been, they found a way to shut down Derrick Henry for the most part. And there was not much else to really talk about. Ryan Tannehill didn't do much else. And, the Ravens, I think more of the whatever there was to talk about was more towards the end of the game when the Ravens decided to do a team celebration on the Titans logo. They said that was not out of disrespect, but I respectfully disagree with that statement. What'd you think here, Toby? There really wasn't much to talk about for this one.
Yeah, there wasn't really much to talk about it. And in the broadcast, you heard that the Ravens aren't or were supposed to not be built for a comeback, and they never came back from a more than 10-point or a 9+ point deficit in a game ever with Lamar Jackson on the field. But it was actually the first time that they overcome a 10-point deficit in a game. And I mean, it wasn't the most pretty game. But yeah, you talked about it. That celebration on the logo at the end was probably most, talk about where the thing that happened in the game, other than maybe Lamar Jackson doing what Lamar Jackson does. But yeah, that celebration, it was out of spite because the Titans celebrated on the Ravens logo earlier that season. So,
Yep. I mean, karma comes back.
yeah.
And the second game, you had your New Orleans Saints handling business against the Bears, 21-9. Most of people expected this kind of thing, even though, again, it was very low scoring for the majority of this game. And, it was being broadcasted on Nickelodeon. That was the first time for everything. That was kind of funny. But, it was funny also because the takes during the game were even more funny or more great than the game itself. There was apparently an F-bomb that was dropped on Nickelodeon's channel that a mic caught, which is great. I didn't hear it, but I really wish I did. And then there was the another Bears corner or receiver throwing hands with another Saints player. I mean, I loved that they put this
not
game
another
on
Saints
Nickelodeon,
player, the same Saints player, or not actually not the same Saints player this time, right? But Johnson,
it was
Gardner
the same
Johnson
guy, right? Yeah. So
there were a couple of punches thrown and some unsportsmanlike conducts in that game. For
it was
example,
crazy
Cam
that they
Jordan going into it with some player.
It's crazy they put this game on there knowing that these teams had an incident earlier in the year, and they didn't expect something like this to happen.
Yeah, definitely not. But best part is Mitch Trubisky winning the Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player award after the game.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I feel bad for Trubisky this year because, and we're gonna go off on a little bit on a tangent here. I actually feel bad for Trubisky because he looks like he's finally found some kind of like rhythm. He actually looks somewhat comfortable in the system now. But I mean, just the team and Nagy are just holding him back, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Trubisky is a better quarterback after being benched for Nick Foles than he was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll talk now about the last game of that weekend, the biggest upset of the whole weekend, the Cleveland Browns beating the number 3 Pittsburgh Steelers after going up 28-0 in the first quarter. It was the most points ever scored by a team in a playoff game in any quarter ever in the history of the NFL. The Browns did that. So there were 3 turnovers in the first quarter, one being on the first play where Pouncey decided to throw a ball over Roethlisberger's head, and then Roethlisberger not wanting to jump on it to go get it. And so, yeah, I mean, Toby, there really wasn't much else to say here. I mean, the Browns offensively and, for the first half defensively, pretty much just owned the Steelers, right? And then, the Steelers made a little bit of a comeback in the second half. I think mainly due to the fact that the Browns were probably taking it easy because they knew they were up 25 points and they knew that their offense wasn't going to be slowed down. So I think they kind of just took their pedal off the foot off the gas a little bit. What was your reaction, especially in that first quarter? Because I was losing my mind looking at this.
Yeah, who didn't? I mean, I think some people expected the Browns to be competitive in the game, and I definitely did, and I picked them to win that game last week. But pulling out 28 points in the first quarter, that's something special. And I think the Browns right now are a team that kind of grow with bigger games. I think they like the spotlight, having those primetime games in big situations. I think that's when the defense and the offense, both sides of the ball for the Browns, shine. And I mean, being in a playoff games at prime time against what was the best team in the NFL for most of the season, that's probably one of the biggest games that you can imagine for the Browns, especially against probably your biggest rival in the game. So I think that's a spot for a Baker Mayfield where he shines.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you're right. It was a big game, not only for the fact that it was their rival and that Juju and other guys were saying, "Oh, they're the Browns. They're not really a threat to us." And I mean, it is the fact, making the playoffs for the first time in so long, and this being maybe one of the best Browns, having the potential to be one of the best Browns teams ever, based off what you do in this season. I mean, it does mean a lot for these players, and I think they're hitting that groove right now. Okay, so Toby, almost breaking news. It's not really breaking news. There's not a lot of there's speculation here. Okay, we're going off of script here a little bit. Okay.
All right.
Deshaun Watson, 15 minutes ago. We've heard a lot about the Deshaun Watson, whether or not he's being traded based off of his feelings towards Houston. He tweeted 5 minutes ago, "I was on 2, then I took it to 10. Now, let me explain why that tweet matters. Schefter, last year, when the Texans traded away DeAndre Hopkins, this was what Schefter tweeted. One source said that this week after Houston traded Pro Bowl wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins last offseason, Deshaun Watson's anger level was a 2. This time it's at a 10. So Schefter reporting that what Deshaun Watson's saying right now is true, that Watson is very, very angry. And we've seen a lot of things going on recently. We heard JJ Watt saying, "I'm sorry we wasted one of your years." You got Andre Johnson and some of these other Texans legends who are coming out saying that Houston is where you go to lose your career. I mean, Toby, this is really unprecedented right now. Like, the Texans are now being thrown into categories of Jacksonville, of what was once Cleveland, and teams like this now and the Jets as of recently, were like, they're being told, you go here, you're never going to accomplish anything in the NFL, man. You got people calling this organization out, saying they're trash, they don't know anything. I mean, and now we got Deshaun Watson saying how angry he is. What's going to happen here, Toby? Do we think Deshaun Watson's actually going to go somewhere this offseason?
I would think that he's probably not going to be a Texan at the start of next season, yeah. I think there is some team that pulls the trigger and trades for Deshaun Watson. I don't know what team that is, and I talked about it last week with that Drew Brees might retire, and there is talk from Saints insiders that the Saints are already pursuing a trade with the Texans for Deshaun Watson if Drew Brees actually decides.
God, no.
to
Oh,
retire.
please,
So
God, no, please. We don't need the Saints to be even better than what they are right now. Oh,
yeah,
man, that
I
would be
mean,
funny.
I'm not entirely sure how they want them to pull it out, because they don't really have the draft capital.
Nor do they
To
have the cap space to afford a big contract like that right now.
That's definitely true, but I'm waiting for the Mickey Loomis voodoo in the off season, and that
Oh,
cap
God.
space is gonna look a little bit better. Um, but yeah, for me, I don't think Deshaun Watson will be the quarterback for the Texans next year.
I agree. I agree. Whether or not he plays somewhere else or whether he just sits out, I don't know. But honestly, I think Deshaun Watson would much rather sit out for a part of the season than to not than to rather play for the Texans right now. I think that
Yeah.
that's truthful. Hold on, Josh is calling. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Hello. Yes, we're on currently. Discord's being weird for you, huh? Okay. Okay. Well, I don't think it matters too much just as long as you can get on, right? Okay. Well, just keep trying. Okay, I'm doing. Hold on. I'm gonna put you on speakerphone. Okay, hold on. Okay,
Alright.
go ahead.
Okay, what's the question?
What's the question? Well, we were talking about Deshaun Watson and whether or not he's gonna be a Houston Texan. Yeah, got any quick thoughts on that?
I think he's going to stay. It just has to happen. He is now, the Texan.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Josh. I don't know about
I like on an Xbox 360 party chat here.
that. Because he probably is, folks. That's what he does.
Probably. I can also see the Houston Texans are desperate right now and they need draft picks. So that's what's going to happen.
They really do. They really,
Yeah.
really do. And that would be a perfect way to get some of their draft capital back. Oh, man. Okay, Josh, figure out your internet, figure out your Discord, and hop on. All right, all right. Well, there was Josh. We may or may not hear from him again, but we're gonna make the best of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So now that we went off on our little bit of a tangent there, we had some stuff there to talk about. Let's talk now about some of the news that was broke out just over the last 24 hours. And a couple different head coaching jobs have been filled up. One of those being the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just hired Urban Meyer as their new head coach, coming from Ohio, formerly from Ohio State, and moving from College Football Network to now being a coach again. And then you have Robert Saleh, who is now going to be the head coach for the Jets, former defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. We knew that was going to probably happen at some point. We just didn't know when. Toby, we'll just kind of combine these two.
Yep.
Which one of these hires do you like the most and why?
I think I like the Robert Saleh trade a bit less than the Urban Meyer one, because I think what the Jets need is a more quarterback-oriented coach in their system to kind of form Sam Darnold into the potential quarterback that most of us know that he can be. And I don't think Robert Saleh, as I think he was defensive coordinator for the 49ers, or was he offensive coordinator?
He was DC.
Yeah, I thought so. So, they went with another defense-oriented coach again, which might not be the best solution in my mind for Sam Darnold at quarterback. And the other thing with Urban Meyer is he's a college head coach, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are a pretty young team who will have probably Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback starting next season, which I think works pretty well with what Urban Meyer usually does with his teams. So in that regard, the combination of Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, should work really well.
Yeah, I like both of these hirings. I think the both of them can be good. Here's why I like Salah better than Urban, though. Salah, I know that he's, he's not a offensive oriented guy. I completely get that. But, when it comes to the head coaching position, I think Salah just is a really good job of getting team morale up the way he does. I mean, we all know who he is. He's a very energetic guy. We know how he's been on the San Francisco sidelines when that defense was just blowing through people
Yeah.
last year. So we know what that guy's like. We totally get it. And I think that's just also what the Jets need. They don't need a guy that doesn't seem like he knows what he wants and doesn't really know how to be the guy to hold players accountable. I mean, he was just saying on a press conference just a week ago or 2 weeks ago that we failed Sam Darnold and what we wanted to have him do. Like, he took blame for it, said, didn't do the right thing. Like, that's what we wanted to hear, right? A lot of people keep dogging on me. I said, this is why Sam Darnold is bad. This is why the head coach is telling you we failed him. That's why. Salah may not be the answer to fixing Sam Darnold, but he's certainly going to, I think, provide him with a more foundational environment, which will make him feel more at home. It'll get some of his confidence back. And if they want to continue to have Sam Darnold as their quarterback, we don't know. He could still get traded. They could do something with that number 2 pick and go Justin Fields. It is possible. I don't know. But and another reason I didn't like the Urban Meyer thing, I like Urban Meyer as a person, and I think as a head coach, he fits the role pretty well. He does a really great job of that team morale thing, right? He's a very, very vocal man. He's very good at that. He's very good at motivational speeches. He knows how to get guys to stay focused. I love that about him. But, he's not a very fundamental statistic and strategic guy when it comes to coaching football. We've seen that at Ohio State. Those last couple years, those Ohio State teams were just trash on how they work their offenses. And I said it before, I hope his health doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. I really hope it doesn't. A lot of people don't realize the reason why Urban Meyer didn't quit coaching in the first place is because he had brain cysts that were forming and inside of his head, and one of them burst. And then he literally had to go to the hospital because he was experiencing brain trauma. Like, that's what happens when that man gets stressed. I don't want to see that happen to him again because, he's getting older and older. The more those things happen, it just gets worse and worse. I mean, a lot of people don't remember that because, his last year was tainted with the Zach Smith news of, domestically abusing his fiance at the time. And how Urban Meyer handled that situation. So, a lot of people didn't realize that, but as a Buckeye fan myself, I remember it. But I think he's in a better spot now. I think he's at peace with himself. The only thing is about the Urban Meyer thing, it's either going to really help his legacy as a coach or it's really going to hurt him. I mean, you're right, yeah, Toby, that he's a college coach. He's never been in the NFL before. We don't know how he's going to do being the head coach of a football team that he's never had experience in that league before. How does he do? I don't know. We'll just have to see. But we do know that whoever he chooses to draft at number 1 is going to be the guy. I mean, okay. Let me throw it at you because I have to. I just want to see.
I know what's coming. Yeah.
Okay. Justin Fields, number 1, isn't an option. Is it? I'm not saying would you do it. I'm not saying if you think Urban will do it, but do you think there's a possibility that they go Justin Fields number 1?
I think now that Urban Meyer is down in Jacksonville, there might be a slight possibility that he wants an Ohio State player at number 1 this year. A slight possibility, but I'm 99% sure it's Trevor Lawrence still.
Yeah, I think you're right too. Like I think anyone that passes on Trevor Lawrence number 1 is going to get probably booed into asylum, especially
Yeah.
Jacksonville fans too.
Yeah.
They'll absolutely hate this man. All right. So and you don't want them to hate you before you even got a chance to show your worth on the
Yeah.
football field. So I think we probably know what's gonna happen. So all right, next topic. Last topic we have before we get into our predictions.
Yep.
And that is Von Miller. Now, Von Miller was on the Twitterverse a lot over the last a couple weeks ago because apparently I think it's his wife that sent text message that leaked text messages between her and Von Miller showing that Von Miller was saying some not so very nice things to her about her and his/her child, and was saying some very bad things, and was underway for I don't know exactly what charges are being filed at the moment.
They
I
haven't
don't.
officially released the charges, I think.
Yeah, they haven't officially revealed anything yet. They're just under investigation because of light of these text messages being sent out. They think that there might be something more that was being done behind the scenes. Again, nothing that we know of yet. He's not being charged with anything yet, but there is a possibility we could find out that Von Miller might have been doing more than just sending threatening text messages to his wife who's carrying his child at the moment. I mean, Toby, this whole thing, I saw a lot of the messages. I've seen them. It made me feel completely different about Von Miller. I mean, I like to separate, personal life from on the football field because I know things are different. But, when you see some of the things that he's been saying to his wife about, what he was saying, it made me feel really sad to think that I actually supported this guy at one point. This is one of the better defensive edge rushers in the NFL, is a very well-known figure. And, how many people are now that we're looking up to him that are now shaming him for, how he's treated his woman and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the messages personally. So it to be honest, it just came to my attention when you told me the topic just before. So I just had a quick look at it. But yeah, I mean, it definitely also changes my opinion if it's actually that bad about Von Miller. I have a Von Miller jersey back in my closet, so I supported the guy because, as you said, he's one of the best defensive players that we've seen over the last couple of years. But yeah, I can't really say too much about it. As I said, I've not read those messages. But yeah, it sucks when the great players of the league when you find out who they really are.
Yeah, you're right. It's like how many more of these players, do stuff like this and that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And again, like we're not assuming anything, it's a matter of, there probably could be nothing more than, just inappropriate text messages being sent between the two. If that's the extent of it, that's not a crime, but it certainly makes people view you a little bit differently on a personal level than what they did before. So I don't think that we're going to see any more commercials with Von Miller in it anytime soon.
Probably not. Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are. We're going to talk about the divisional round playoff games. We are here. Let's do this. So the first game, we have the Packers at home against the Rams, 4:35 Eastern time on Fox. We have Josh saying that the Packers will win this one. Toby, do you agree?
I agree with that one. I think it's a bit more clear this week than it was last week for the Rams game against the Seahawks, as Green Bay, I think, just is probably a top 5 team of the league right now. The Rams are not, even after last week's performance. And Green Bay at home in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. Again, I haven't looked up the weather forecast for this week, but Lambeau Field in January could be another point that the Packers might be a bit more comfortable compared to the Rams in this game. So I'm also going with the Packers here.
Yeah, I'll go with the Packers. You know, it's in Lambeau. It's going to be cold. The weather plays a factor into it. And everybody knows that the Packers always have the advantage when they're playing in their field in those kinds of conditions because they're used to it. So the Packers just have the easy advantage here. All right. Second game of that Saturday, the Buffalo Bills at home against the Baltimore Ravens at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. I'll just go ahead and say mine. Although Josh did pick Buffalo. I was originally going to say Ravens because Buffalo got exposed against the Colts last weekend that if you can run the ball on this team, Buffalo will have a weakness on their defense. But I think this time they're going to shore things up a little more. And, you know, for as good as the Ravens defense is, their defense is even better at stopping the run. I'm not going to say the same thing about their pass defense, even though I know Marcus Peters has been fantastic. They're certainly not the same passing defense as they are rushing defense. And Buffalo this season has just been outstanding in throwing the football, better than a lot of other teams. So I think Buffalo sneaks this one out. I think it's going to be another close one, but I think Buffalo sneaks it out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you here. I'm also going with Buffalo Bills here. And one thing that Ryan Tannehill exposed last week against the Baltimore Ravens, when he actually threw the ball, they usually had pretty easy completions on the deep ball, and that's where the Buffalo Bills shine with Stephon Diggs and some other receivers on the Bills and Josh Allen. So I think that's something that the Bills have to rely on at home against Baltimore. And as you said, it's going to be close because the Bills, if they can't stop the run, which is probable against Lamar Jackson, they have a tough time, but I expect it to be close.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Sunday games, January 17th. We have the Kansas City Chiefs coming off their bye against the Cleveland Browns, 3:05 on CBS. Toby, what do you got? Josh has Kansas City for this one.
Yeah, I gotta give the edge to Kansas City right now because Patrick Mahomes, I don't think the Browns defense is as good as it was over the course of this season. I don't think they can stop Patrick Mahomes. And the offense might have a shot against the Chiefs defense, but I think they might not be as inclined to perform that well that game. As we know, Baker Mayfield is really depending on how he feels when he plays, if he wakes up dangerous or not. And I think an afternoon game, even if it's the playoffs against a non-rival, it might not be the same for him as it was last week. So I give the edge to the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right. Here's my thinking on this game. So, first off, I thought the 10-point favorite to Kansas City was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
It's a bit much. And it goes to remind people just how much people think Kansas City is just that head over heels better than Cleveland. Here's what I'm going to say, Toby. Here's the keys to this game. Who is able to run the ball better in these kinds of games? We've seen the Kansas City Chiefs slide away from the run game quite often at the end of the season. Cleveland, their run game has remained strong And they just, even with 2 offensive linemen missing in that Steelers game, they still ran through that Steelers defense like it was nothing. And I'll be honest here. Kansas City has not played good football over the last month. Ever since December came in, they've won games, but they've not really been blowing anybody out. Every single game has been close.
Yeah.
They just look like either they really are like just tired of the competition and they're really not trying, or maybe it's the opposite. And Kansas City may not actually be as strong when they have an opponent that actually can get pressure on Mahomes, because we've seen it this year. Mahomes gets sacked a couple more times this year. So they haven't been playing great football over the last month. They haven't played football in 2.5 weeks because they didn't play their starters in week 17. So they didn't play football for over 2 weeks. And now I'm just expected to think they're just going to blow out the Browns, who have looked like one of the better teams in the NFL. I'm sorry. I think the Browns are going to pull the upset on this one. I don't think the champions are going to come out as strong as everyone thinks they are. You know this of all things, Toby, that when your Saints get a bye and they have that issue, they come out flat. And I think that could be another one of those cases. So I think they got it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 10-point advantage for the Chiefs. It's ridiculous. The thing is, I think the Chiefs pull their usual playoff stunt, being behind by 20-something points in the first half, and then just blowing the opponent out in the second half like they did last year.
I'll also say this. In that game against Pittsburgh, Cleveland was without Denzel Ward, without 2 offensive linemen, was without a safety and a defensive lineman that they're used to having. So they did all of that while also missing so many players. They're going to be healthier than ever. They're going to be as determined as ever. I think that it's different from the Texans. I don't think that Cleveland goes up 24-0 on them to start the game, and then they give up 8 of their last 9 offensive drives ends up being a touchdown. I just don't see that happening. I mean, I think it's going to be a close one again. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I just think the Browns might still get the edge on this because they have what the Texans have not been able to do, and that's being able to run the football. They're going to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field a lot more in this game than they're used to.
They definitely have a good chance in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and the last one, your Saints against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the trio. It's the third time that Tom Brady and Drew Brees will be facing off. Brees trying to remain undefeated and cement that GOAT argument against Tom Brady, I think. I don't know whether or not you want to say that or not, but I just thought that was funny. So Josh picked the Saints. I'm going to wait to have Toby finish last because that's just his bread and butter. But I think it will be the Saints win here. I think even though the Saints didn't look great last week, I think they have the better overall defense. I think they'll be able to slow down the offense of Tampa Bay. That's just what they seem to do every time they come to New Orleans. And, Alvin Kamara has just been another beast all of his own this year. I don't see them having any way of slowing him down. And not to mention you get Michael Thomas back, which, that certainly helps, having one of the better wide receivers in the game back as well. So I think the Saints will handle their business here. I'm going with the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. The Saints didn't play that well last week, especially in the first half of the game. But when you look at the second half of the Bears game, I think that's more of the groove that they need to find for the playoffs. And a bunch of players came back last week, and they had to find back into the rhythm. So I think that's what that first half last week was. And I mean, it wasn't terribly bad, but it wasn't good enough for what the Saints can do. And this week against Tampa Bay, I feel like it's not gonna be the same as the second game in the regular season, and Tampa Bay when the Saints beat the Buccaneers with 31-3. I don't think that's going to happen in the playoffs. But for me, it's not as close as the spread of 3 points makes it out to be. With the Saints at almost full strength, they're not quite at a full strength with still Trey Hendrickson out for the game. But they are so deep on defense right now that they can actually manage that. With David Onyemata having to play the major snaps at defensive tackle for Trey Hendrickson. But on offense, I mean, they're at full strength again. Before the Bears game, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara only played about the combined snaps together as usually one regular season game over the entire season. So with them all three on the field and Drew Brees clicking with a lot of other receivers like Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Callaway, and a Deontay Harris, I don't really see how Tampa Bay could stop that offense, to be honest. I haven't seen that much from the Tampa Bay defense over the course of the year that I'd say, okay, that's not something a full strength Saints offense could overcome. So, and look what the Saints defense did last week against the Bears. Of course, the Bucs defense is a lot better than the Bears offense is a lot better than the Bears offense. So they might score a bit more than 9 points on the Saints. And to be honest, I'm not really counting the last 6 points to Jimmy Graham for the Bears. So the Bears actually, for me, just scored 3 points in that game. So yeah, for me, Saints clear favorite in that one. I'd say more than a score.
All right, there we go, guys. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed a lot of great news coming out of the NFL this week. A lot of great things to talk about. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at T3DS_NFL. And be sure to follow on Spotify at the Third Down Squad Podcast. And as always, guys, peace.
See